South-to-South cooperation that we have, I think is very, very important. One, it helps us to learn from each other's experiences. And also, two, it gives us opportunity to look at how we, for example, are doing things differently from other areas, and how we can be able to also learn from other areas, not necessarily in the South-South cooperation, but also in other areas where we can be able to promote investment, because that's really the purpose of it. The ease of doing business is all about promoting investment in our respective countries. So once you have those experiences shared amongst ourselves, where we have almost similar sort of economic activities and policies, and also dating back to our history in terms of colonial domination. So it helps us to learn how, for example, our neighbors are doing it differently from us. And that is a very good experience for us, I think, as countries from the South here. In Uganda, we have done a number of reforms that really need that we think is necessary for purposes of easing the doing of the business. Now, what we did was we did a matrix. What are these key things investors, for example, consider as a priority for them to be able to set up very easily? The first, of course, is, as you know, investment and peace and security are twin brothers. One cannot coexist without the other. So for investment to thrive, there must be peace and security. That's the first and foremost. Now, once we have passed that hurdle, then there are other considerations which investors look at. And the ease of doing business has a number of what we call items that they normally look at. Now, in Uganda, these are the things we need to do. We needed to do, and this is what we have done. We identified all those agencies with whom investors interact. And we found out from the investors what their issues were regarding all these agencies. I will just name a few of them. The first was the setting up the business, and that is done by the Uganda Registration Services Bureau. They are responsible for name reservation and as well as issuing that certificate. Two, Uganda Investment Authority, they are the agency responsible for promotion, for nurturing, and also giving advice in terms of investment. Three was the Uganda Revenue Authority, because at the end of the day, when you are doing taxes, when you're doing business, at the end of the day, you must pay some taxes. That was the third one. The fourth one is the Ministry of Lands. All investments exist on land. They must take place on land. They are not in space. So they are a very critical department as far as we're concerned. Immigration, that will help to establish the status of those who are coming into the country. The fourth is that NEMA, that is what we call the National Environmental Management Agency. They're very, very important, because whatever investment you want to do, you must always ensure that it conforms to the environment, it does not adversely affect the environment. So we identify them as also key stakeholders. Now, the Kampala City Authority, where you find most of the businesses are currently in Uganda, they're also a key stakeholder. We brought them on board. And then lastly, we brought the Ministry of Finance, the people who are responsible for setting up policies and guidelines to Uganda Investment Authority and others. So once we identified all these key stakeholders, we found out from investors what the issues were. And we found out that, one, they were tired of moving around from office to office and office. So we started to set up a one-stop center. Physical. In other words, agencies seconded personnel from their departments, ministries, and so on to Uganda Investment Authority to be able to assist and coordinate these activities. Now, but that did not solve the problem. We found out that actually, you see, these officers here did not have the powers to be able to, for example, give licenses, give permits, and so on. They always had to go back into their respective ministries, agencies. So what we did was to set up an electronic web portal where all these agencies could then talk to each other. As we speak right now, 5 out of 7 of the agencies are already on board. So when an investor comes in, applies for investment license online, after incorporation, that information is picked up by all the other agencies. So when you come and now apply for investment license, you find that you are able to talk to all the other agencies at the same time. So that's what we have done in Uganda. But we found there was a bottleneck that the issue of, for example, the respective laws that establish these institutions, they have their mandates. That, for example, it can only be the Commissioner of Immigration to give immigration a permit. For example, in case of lands, it's only the Commissioner of Lands that can actually issue it. And because we could not be able to transfer or second a whole commissioner from the Ministry of Lands to this Uganda Investment Authority, what we have decided to do as one of the final steps to try to resolve that issue is to amend the Uganda Investment Authority Act, which then gives them the overall powers over all these other agencies. And this is directly now under the Office of the President. So we have elevated it to what we call a super department, that they have the right to summon any government official from any department, ministry, or agency over matters regarding investment. So that's the level at which now we have taken the promotion of investment, and also trying to ease the business, doing of the business. But last one now is we are going to construct a physical one-stop center where all these agencies who have seconded officers with the powers to issue the respective licenses, permits, what have you, will be residing. So that will be the final, that will be our final now undertaking to be able to solve this issue of always not being one of the best in terms of doing business. So we've made a lot of progress in that regard, and we do hope that hopefully by next year, the year after, we should jump into the double digits in terms of doing business here. The ones I want to take home is what has been done by is it Huduma? Huduma, to me, I think Kenyans have also gone a bit a step further. Now, instead of dealing just with investors, now they're extending some of these services now to the ordinary people. For example, applying for a passport online from Mombasa or from Nakuru, from wherever it is. Now, that to me, you have now taken a step a bit higher than while we were focusing ourselves on the investors only. Now, for example, Kenya has gone the extra mile to now to extend services to the ordinary people, that they're able to also, in their own way, do their business without too much of a hassle. You can imagine somebody coming all the way from Nakuru to Kampala to apply for a passport. The time that you spend to come here, the expense, and so on. So you see, now you have taken it a bit higher. That's one of my key takings in this particular. And the other key take which I found was the experience from Mauritius and Rwanda, where they have basically now digitized. They have digitized land titles throughout the country. To me, that also was something that which I'll take back as something which came out of this conference. The other one is the digitizing of customers, of electricity users in Kenya, which we saw this morning when we were having the tour this morning. And I was quite impressed that Kenya Power has gone to that extent of actually digitizing every home or user of electricity in the country, which makes it, I think, quite very easy for purposes of doing business. Because then what it means is that if I have my plot here, all I need to do is to tell Kenya Power, this is my plot, this is where I am, and they'll know whether you are near the grid or you're very close to the power line, and that definitely will help to ease the electricity connection. So those are, I think, to me, those are the three key things which I've taken out of this conference, in addition to the others, of course, but these are the ones which I'll take home as something I've learned, I've got from this conference here.